Morning, everyone. Nice to be here this morning on this beautiful Sabbath day. It's always good to find ourselves in the house of the Lord on the Sabbath day. Today I wanted to talk to you about what God can do. And so often in our lives we limit God, but He can do great things for us. The morning was cool and very early, probably about 4 a.m, a little earlier. Young Sydney stirred in his bed and he reached out for his sugar bag with all his earthly possessions. And then out of bed he got. He crept down the hallway. He was only 12 years old. He was leaving home. And just as he got opposite his mother's open door, rats scurried across the ceiling in the unsealed house, and he froze in his tracks. Not only did he not like rats, he was frightened that the rat would wake his mother and she would see he was going. He wandered out of the house, and there in the yard was his faithful horse. He bridled the horse. He put the saddle cloth on his back, he put the saddle on, he put his foot in the stirrup and lifted his weight onto the horse's back. He rode slowly away from the house, not looking back, but in his pocket a picture of his mother. He had it in his pocket because it was near and dear to his heart. Never again would he see his mother alive. The man was Sidney Kidman, and you probably know the story of Sidney Kidman. With cattle stations, he started off as a 12-year-old boy with nothing. Cattle stations from the Gulf of Carpentaria to the Great Australian Bight and everywhere in between. At his peak, he owned 4% of the Australian landmass, and that's a lot of area. I want you this morning to share with me in the scriptures another man, a grazier, a flock master, a shepherd, whatever you want to call him. And he too ended up with great flocks and herds, and the most important thing in his life was, towards the end of his life, was what God could do for him. I want you to turn to Genesis 27, verses 1 to 7, and we'll see who this man really is. Verse 1 says, "And it came to pass that when Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, so that he could not see, he called Esau his oldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. And he said, Behold, now I am old, I know that the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver and thy bow, and go out into the field, and take me some venison." And we know the story, how Esau went out to get venison to make savoury meat for his father, Isaac. I've got to be careful, I get Isaac, Esau, I get them all mixed up. His father, Isaac. Anyway, but, there's always a but. But Rebecca was listening. She heard what he said. And when the twins were born, God had said, the older shall serve the younger. And as a result, Rebecca was doing what God could do. She was going to make God's plan come true. So often, we're like that in our lives. We don't do our work, we try to do what God can do for us. As a result, she said to Jacob, "Go and get a couple of lambs of the flock, a couple of kid goats, bring them to me and I'll dress them and make savoury meat for your father." And Jacob thought, well, this is no good. My father knows me, I'm a clean-skinned man. Esau's red, he's hairy. Oh, Isaac couldn't see, but he could feel. He said he's all hairy. So that's not going to work. Mother said, just go and do as you're told. So he went and got the kid goats, brought them up, and Rebecca, in her, we might say wisdom, but in her deception, she prepared the savoury meat for Isaac. Then she said to Jacob, take this into your father. And he said, but sure, it's clean skin. Doesn't matter. She got the skin of the little goats and put on his hands around his neck. And she even put Esau's clothing on Jacob so that he would have the smell of the field, just to deceive Isaac. So in he went. I just want you to, I think it's Genesis 27 and verse 18. And he came unto his father and said, my father. And he said, here am I. Who art thou, my son? And Jacob said unto his father, I am Esau, thy firstborn. That's a bit of a straight out lie, isn't it? I am Esau, your firstborn. But he was Jacob. And he said, I have done according that you badest me. Arise, I pray thee, and eat of the venison, that my soul may bless me. And Isaac said unto his son, how did you find? He might have been old, but he might have been blind, but he hadn't lost his mind. He said, how did you get the venison so fast? Oh, I just went out round the corner and popped the deer off and prepared him. Here you are, here's your venison. And what a direct lie, a deceit that Jacob did here. And he went to his father, Isaac, and his father kissed him, and he felt him and said, yes, it is the voice of Jacob, but it is the body of Esau. So he knew the difference. And friends, it says in verse 26 that, and his father, Isaac, said unto him, come near now and kiss me, my son. So he went and kissed him. Now, I just wanted to compare. I'm not going to call the text up. I just wanted you to compare. Here, Jacob kissed Isaac in deceit. Also you'll find in 1 Samuel 4:33 that Absalom kissed his father David. And then in Matthew 28 and verse 13, that kiss of death, that was Judas when he kissed Jesus. Now I want to go back, I've started there, but I want to go back now and just go through from the beginning the life of these twins. And if you turn with me to Genesis 25 and verse 22. And the children struggled together within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. Probably bad enough having one child. And some of the ladies here have had two, I know that. But here was two children warring within her members. And God said there'd be two great nations in there. And he said the older will serve the younger. So this is where Rebecca got her plan to deceive Isaac, to make sure that God's will would be done. And I don't know whether you've thought about this, but this was probably the longest birth in history. I don't know, I just estimated in my mathematical brain that probably this birth was about 1.5 metres long. And you might say, how come the child was that long? Because it says that Esau came out red and hairy. And then Jacob grabbed young mate by the heel. and he followed him out. So it was one bird. And you can add the, I don't know, have a guess at the length of the babies and add them together in a stretched out arm, and it was a long bird. But Jacob was born after Esau, but he grabbed his heel to follow him out. You know, and as they progressed through life, there was a deception. Esau came in from the field, hungry. Jacob had his pottage of lentils there cooking, and Esau said, "Feed me lest I die." He was famished. And Jacob said, "Yeah, I'll feed you. What about your birthright? I'll swap you, do a deal with you." You know, friends, so often we do a deal with God, or we try to. Here was a deception again. Jacob was deceiving his brother. As a result, he forfeited his birthright to Jacob, and he despised his birthright. And we follow the twins through, and we know how Esau was a hunter, Jacob was a man of tents and flocks or whatever. And it got to the stage after where we started, where Jacob went into Isaac, that Esau said, "When father dies, I will kill him." Here was a killer. Esau was going to be a killer of Jacob. Anyway, Mother Rebecca steps in again. We've said to Isaac, we've got to send Jacob away so he doesn't marry a woman of the Midian tribe. Send him to my brother Laban. Anyway, so Isaac agreed, and they sent him off, but Rebecca's plan was so that Esau would not kill Jacob. And you know, they sent him to Laban, and Laban was a Syrian, you know, and we know that the trouble that he had with Laban, and it hasn't changed much in 4,000 years. The Syrians are still giving a lot of trouble. Anyway, when Jacob went to Laban, he met Rachel, and he said, "I will serve 7 years for Rachel." But in Laban deceived Jacob, as Jacob had deceived his father. "As ye sow, so shall ye reap." And when he woke up next morning, Leah was in his bed, not Rachel. Anyway, so he had to work another 7 years for Rachel. And then it says in the Bible, 6 years for the cattle. By this time, Jacob, after 20 years of serving Laban, he was a well-to-do man. God had blessed him beyond his wildest dreams. It wasn't what Jacob had done, it was what God was doing for him. It's what God can do, not what he could do. Anyway, he decided to leave, and we know the story of the images in the tent and so forth. I'll skip over that. I want to come to the place where it's in Genesis 32:25, and it says there that Jacob says it there about the angel, but Jacob says, "I saw God face to face. And when he saw not that he prevailed against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh." Now just imagine, Jacob had become a changed man. Now he wanted God's blessing. And he said, "I will not let you go, except you bless me." Do we wrestle with God like that? Do we say, "I will not let you go unless you bless me"? Or do we just let it go? What a difference happened in the life of Jacob. And when Jacob says that he actually saw God face to face, he wrestled with God. So I believe that angel, Jesus, he wrestled with Jesus. And when he wouldn't let him go, he touched his thigh and dislocated his thigh. And I just want to illustrate this morning. Can you imagine Jacob would have been a fit man, probably in his mid-40s, 50s, and there he would have been a threat to Esau. After this, he was to meet Esau. But God dislocated his thigh, And this is how Jacob would have been. He would have been like I am, getting along, like this, on his walking stick. And just imagine the difference when Esau saw Jacob, his brother, on a crutch, instead of a warring man who's going to deceive him. He saw the difference. You know, after the blessing, and God blessed Jacob, he went on ahead to meet Esau. He sent a team ahead of him to let Esau know he was coming, and he had great presents for Esau. And just imagine if you were in Jacob's shoes, if you were on a crutch, on a walking stick, and you saw your brother thundering towards you, 400 fighting men with Esau. Would that be a daunting sight? Just imagine, 400 horsemen going towards you would be a daunting sight. And Jacob had known the deceit that he had put over Esau. But you know, God had visited Jacob and changed his mind. That's what God can do. God visited Esau and made him receptive of his brother Jacob. And what did he do when he saw his brother? He jumped off his horse and he ran. He fell on his neck and he kissed him. What a difference. Esau was going to be a killer. He was going to kill this man. But God had visited him. And what God can do. Now, he fell on his neck and he kissed him. And that's the love that we need, was the love that Esau had for Jacob. You know, a father had two boys. They went to school. They were in the same grade. They had different birth dates. They weren't twins, but they were brothers, only a few months apart. And someone said, how can this be? How can you be brothers? You're both born the same year. Well, they said, one of us is adopted. Yes, okay, they said. Which one? They said, we don't know. Well, someone must know. No, Dad did know, but he doesn't know anymore. He's forgotten. He loves us both the same. And so he doesn't know which one's which. Friends, that's the love that we need for one another. The same love as that. We don't know. We just love everyone. I want you to turn with me to James 4 and verse 2. James 4 and verse 2. And it says there, ye lust and have not, ye kill and desire to have, and cannot obtain. Ye fight and war, yet ye have not, because ye seek not. If we seek God, he will answer our prayers. He will change our lives. Friends, it's what God can do for us, each one. We can give without loving. You can see someone say, oh, here's $10, get out of my road. But friends, you cannot love without giving, and that's the difference. We love someone we will give, and willingly. You know, it's like the story of the pig and the cow. The pig was lamenting that no one liked her, but the cow was popular. And the cow said, well, I give milk, they get cream and butter and cheese and yogurt, all the things they can make from what I give. What do you do? And the pig said, oh, they sell my pork, they sell bacon, they sell ham, they even eat my feet, they're a delicacy. What a thought. Anyway, the cow said, did you ever think that I give while I'm living? And that's the difference, right? Give while we're living. You know, if God holds you in his hand, and he will if you let him, you will see him face to face, because if God holds you in his hand, you will see God. You know, so often we sort of think of, if I help this person, oh, what repercussions is it for me? If we have the love we should, if I help this person, what are the repercussions going to be for him? It's always worrying about us instead of worrying about him. And I'll share a story with them about a man who gave continually. You know, love is a principle, it's not an act. And it's only as we have the love of Jesus Christ and filled with the power of the Holy Spirit will we be able to receive the blessings that God has for us. Down on one of our properties, down at Wowan, about 60 kilometres from Bromley where we live, there's a little pumping motor there that we go down and we start the pump, and it pumps the water. Olive and I went down one day and we did a bit of fencing or whatever. We went over to start the pump. And like I always do, I checked the oil and I turned the tap off and got everything ready. I went round and I don't know how many times, and the pump was still cold and I was getting hotter, kept pulling on the lead. And my wife in her wisdom said, "Is there any fuel in it?" And I said, "No, there's not." And of course she thought, oh, here's half smarty. No, there's not. That's what she's expecting to say anyway. I said, "No, there's not." And you know, friends, I walked over to the back of the ute and I got the fuel container and I filled the tank. It's a Honda motor. First start, every start. And away the water pumped. And that is like the Holy Spirit in our life. If we haven't got the power, if we haven't got the fire, if we haven't got all the things that we need, we will find ourselves wanting. And I said a while ago that love is a principle, it's not an act. And I want to share a story this morning of a man called Sundar Singh. And Sundar Singh was an Indian, as you realise by his name. He was a missionary to Nepal. And Sundar Singh was there for 30 or 40 years, serving the Nepalese people. One day, Sundar and his Christian friend started on a journey around the mountain passes in Nepal. And as they went along, a blizzard blew up. And it was hard going. They battled the elements. Come around the track, and Sundar looked down the side, and there was a man. He'd fallen down to the next level. His leg was broken, and he needed immediate treatment. Anyway, the Christian friend said, "Sundar, if we help this man, we'll all die. We'll all perish. Let him die. He's almost dead. Let's get on to the next town." And Sundar Singh, being the man that he was, said, "I can't do that." He said, "I will have to help this man. Whatever happens to me, I've got to help him." So his Christian friend bade him goodbye and said, "I'll see you tonight in the next town, if you make it." Sundar Singh crawled down the mountain path, patched the man's leg as best he could, and dragged him onto his back. And he staggered up the path, got back on the mountain path after much battling and much hard work. By now he was sweating profusely, even though it was snow everywhere. And he staggered along the track with this man on his back. And it took him hours and hours to make it. As they went along the track, another man needed help. But when Sundar Singh leant over, he realised the man was dead. He couldn't help him. Then on the second look, that man was the Christian friend who said, "If you help him, we'll all perish." The Christian friend perished. Sundar Singh was still going. And he staggered along the track with this weight on his back. And it took him hours and hours. He got to his destination just at nightfall and gave the man over the authorities to look after him. And you know, it was just then that Sundar Singh realised through all that hard work to save that man, the sweating he did stopped him from freezing to death, and the heat of his body warmed the man up that was on his back, and he saved him as well. You know, friends, are our lives like that? Not only did he save himself, he saved the other one. Not only did he save the other man, he saved himself. I want to share with you this morning just the story of the ark, how Noah, do you think Noah could build a boat like that of his own ability? He wasn't a shipwright, doesn't even say he was a carpenter in the Bible. But Noah, for 120 years, God told him, you do this, Noah, you do that. I'll be with you. And he did what God told him to do. And then one day it started to rain. And all those outside, the smell of rain is beautiful when it hasn't rained. Oh, this is lovely out here. And as they look at the ark and the animals started going in, they said, oh, we don't want to go in anyway. Not only does it stink in there, there's animals in there, we won't bother going in there. So they stayed outside and it rained and they played in the water and they enjoyed it. And then they waded in the water and they swam. But then it kept raining. And we know what happened. They were all drowned. And this morning I'd like to liken this church to Noah's Ark. In here, you come to the door in the morning, there's an odd stink, and there's an odd animal in here. I've been coming to these places for almost 80 years. Nothing's changed. It's just as it was. But God has done great things and can do great things for those in here. And I just want to share, I've never told this story in my life before, but I know it because it's happened to me. I know it's true. And I want to show you a story about Pig Island. Who knows where Pig Island is? Surprise, surprise. I know something that no one else knows. That's good, isn't it? Anyway, if you travel north on the Bruce Highway between Proserpine and Bowen, you'll come to a place called Longford Creek. Across the highway, Eden Lassie Creek. Should be called river. It's a flowing torrent when it rains. And if you go 10 k's east, that's where Pig Island is. It's right on the edge of the ocean. As a small boy growing up, I lived on Pig Island. My father there worked the farm with draft horses and all those things. And when you went to Pig Island, you crossed the bridge, and I can still hear the sulky horses as their feet battered across the bridge. And when you got onto Pig Island, there was 113 Bowen Special mango trees. There was oranges and lemons, mandarins, grapefruit, all those things. And there was a Jersey cow called Bluey, and Bluey was the Jersey cow. We had a couple of pigs in the sty in case we got hungry next week or the week after. There was chooks and all those sort of things. And I came home as a baby, the only one of 7 siblings who could not tolerate breast milk. I was different. I was born different, apparently. Anyway, my mother said to Dad, go and milk Bluey. He went and milked Bluey. It wasn't homogenised, it wasn't pasteurised. It was like Louie the fly, straight from rubbish tip to you. This was Bluey the cow, the milk was straight from Bluey to me. And friends, not only did I survive, I thrived on Bluey's milk. If my mother had been a vegan, I would have been dead today because I was getting very low and I'd come home from hospital and I wasn't real well. Anyway, in May 1946, on Pig Island, I was 4 years and 10 months old. Had a 17-month brother older than me, had a sister who was just almost 1 year old. And hadn't rained in 1945, it was like 2019, it was dry. And then one day in May 46, it started to rain. And it was like Noah's day. It rained, and it rained, and it rained. It just couldn't stop. After a few days when the rain stopped, the sun came out just on sundown. Then the noise started. The noise of the flooded rivers. Sounded like jet planes in a battle. To the south was Scrubby Creek, roaring like a pride of lions. In the middle was Eden Lassie or Longford Creek, and to the north was Billy's Creek, all in full flood, all of them at the same time. And we're on the edge. Those 3 rivers fed into where we live. It was going to be a long night. Anyway, by dark, the water was starting to cover the ground near the house. By this time, some of Pig Island was 2 metres underwater, and the water kept rising and rising and rising. We were upstairs in that house, and as night came on, the old hurricane lamp came out. You know those old hurricane lamps? You've seen them, haven't you? Yes, and the people at camp would be used to hurricane lamps. And what you do when you've got a hurricane lamp, someone else follows you around and lights a match. And that's just so you can see where you're going. The hurricane lamp doesn't show you much. It's just if you get lost, someone knows where to find you. But all through the night, Mum and Dad would go out to the landing, look over the side and watch the rising floodwater. The noise from the creeks was terrific. The logs and things bumping under the house, like a medieval army trying to knock the walls down. It was bumping through the night. And the water kept rising. Towards midnight, the water just suddenly rose right up. Within 3 steps, where I'm standing, house, floor level. 1, 2, 3. Where you are, raging floodwater. Absolute raging floodwater. The tide had come in and pushed the floodwater up to new levels. Anyway, luckily, by God's grace, it didn't go any higher. Then the water started to fall. By daylight, it was almost down to the base, and the tide had gone out. The tide had come in there a couple of times a day since Noah's flood. And that flood, 46 flood, in that area, is still regarded as the highest flood recorded since Noah's time. No flood as higher. Anyway, further north at Bowen, farmhouse had washed away, people were drowned, and I knew a man and a woman, brother and sister. They were a little bit older than me, but I grew up in the town where they were. And they were found way up in the fork of a tree. No clothes on, they'd been rolled around in the water, and they'd grabbed onto a branch, and a farmer found them up there. Their mother, their father, all their siblings had been drowned, but they were saved. You know, friends, I want to say to you this morning, we're in that house, and what a privilege it was to be in the house, because that's where we were saved. You know, the police came down on horseback a couple of days after with other neighbours. There was no mobile phones, there was no nothing. You didn't have, even the torch, didn't even have a torch or a battery because it only lasted 10 seconds anyway. I'm talking about 75 years ago. Life was primitive out there in the bush, and it's just a wonderful privilege of being able to see how people managed those days compared with now. It's just amazing, actually. Anyway, the police and the neighbours arrived. They didn't expect to find us alive. They thought the house would be washed away or we'd be drowned in the house or whatever. Because as they come towards Pig Island, the devastation was terrible. There was animals up in trees and all that sort of stuff. But God had saved us where we were. You know, God is waiting to bless us this morning beyond our wildest dreams. On Monday, January 13, 2020, was like all other days it had been for some 5-6 months. The day was hot, it was dusty, it was a terrible day. I was feeding cattle all day, and the water, our water had gone. We'd used the neighbour's dam. We only had 1 week left, and I prayed to God on Monday. I said, Lord, the next job is too big for me. We had to move 8 kilometres to the river, run pipeline, pump water. I said, Lord, I can't do it. Send rain. That was Monday, the 13th. I came inside about 6:30 on Monday night, and I rung all of up and had our usual conversation. And about 7, 7:05, it was still daylight, the sun was just setting and you could still see real plain out there at that time of the day. And I said to Olive, it's not going to rain tonight. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't going to rain tonight. Anyway, put the phone down, went into the kitchen to prepare some dinner, and there was a clap of thunder that I thought would blow the house apart. There was lightning like I'd never seen. And then the rain started. It poured through the kitchen ceiling, it poured through the dining room ceiling, it poured through the office ceiling, and 10 metres of awning, the water blew sideways, through between the bricks and the aluminium windows, up around the architrave. I put a big swirly bucket, the mop thing, on top of the cupboard, and because that much water just poured in. And I went and sat back in the lounge chair. I said, Lord, flood the house. Please send rain. And that's what happened. You know, next morning I got up about 4:30, and I read my Sabbath school lesson and sort of prepared some of this sermon. And I went and loaded 4 300 kilo bales of hay onto the trailer to take over my son's cattle across the river. He was away for a couple of days. And when I went over there, I got 5 k's along the road, phone rang. And the Daisy contractor of ours said, you got all the rain last night. That's the first word he said. I said, did I? He said, yeah. He said, I'm only 5 k's from you, the way the crow flies. I got 6.5 mil of rain. And the neighbour on the northern boundary got 19. My neighbour on the side where I get the water for the dam got 40. One across the road got none. And one down that corner got 9. But on Braham-Lee, it was a flood. Water everywhere. The dozer contractor came to work, drove up the dozer wall from the back. Of course, when he left the dark last night, it was empty. He was going to clean the bottom out, finish off. There was 5 metres of water in that dam. And 5 inches of rain's never put that much water in that dam ever. And when I came back from feeding the cattle, I could not believe as I drove further up the paddock, everything was full of water. The creeks were full of water. The neighbours were talking, town was talking. The rain was on our property, and mainly our property alone. That's what God can do. This morning, I just want to show you a few of those photos. And just while Richard's getting that ready, the neighbour I get the water off, he came over second day after days, I just cleaned the rest of the top of the dam. And he was jumping around like a cricket taking photos. He was amazed. And he said, you know, he said, you get more rain than anyone else in the Dawson Valley. Praise God. And this is what our place looks like today. This is the airport dam. It's full, overflowing. There, see the grass all in there? Please, Richard. There's the one on, that's the highway dam, and you can see the amount of water. That water there, when it rises another metre, which it can do, it will be 13 mil, 12 metres deep. It's a lot of water. It's almost into acres there. That's what it's like when it's run right up into that will run right back here to the other dam when it's full. Look at the grass, the way it's grown. There's 100 cattle on that little paddock. That's what the grass is like. Yep. Next, please, Richard. And this is the next generation. This young cow is a cow 6 weeks ago I was feeding to keep alive. And there she is now, her new baby, a baby daughter. The next generation is on its way. What God can do. This is another dam. It's full, as you can see, right up. And we couldn't get the other dam because there was too much water, other 2 dams. The other dam is the same size as all those 3 dams put together. They're all full of water. The grass is green. Friends, that's what God can do. God is in king's palaces. God is in opulent houses. He's in your house, he's in my house. God is in ghettos and slums, under bridges and culverts. You know, and if needed, God will be in the gutter with whoever needs him. And as a drought-ticking farmer, God was with me. And when you come to the door on Sabbath morning, and you look inside, and think, oh, there's a bit of a stink in here, there's a few animals in here, sure, I grant you all that. Just remember, friends, that all these people in here and everywhere, Jesus Christ has died on Calvary. He's shed his blood, he spilt his blood on the tree that we might have eternal life. So when you come in here in the morning and look around and say who's who in the zoo, just remember, these are God's people. God died for all. That's what God can do. Shall we further praise God with the use of hymn number 99? Be not dismayed, where'er betide, God will take care of you. Beneath his wings of love abide, God will take care of you.